On the eve of the latest lockdown review, another snag. Health officials in England are worried the South African variant of coronavirus may be spreading in the community, with urgent mass testing now underway in London, Kent, Surrey, Hertfordshire, the West Midlands and Merseyside. 11 cases of the variant have been identified among people who hadn't been abroad. Here, the Scottish Government say they're continuing to track cases.
Early testing suggests the vaccines we have may not be as effective against this variant, and the First Minister said she wants more protection. She's set to announce tighter restrictions on international
news.
Well, if the virus spreading, is the vaccine rollout slower here than in the rest of the UK? That's the accusation from opposition politicians, with Scottish Conservative leader Douglas Ross accusing Nicola Sturgeon's government of letting Scotland down.
Well, let's take a look at some of the figures. More than 575,000 people have received at least one dose of a vaccine here. In England, that figures over 8 million, which is a higher rate per head of population. 98% of care home residents, elderly people in Scotland's care homes, have had one dose of a vaccine. In England, though, all residents have been merely offered a dose. And 80% of over 80s have had the vaccine so far. That milestone was reached in England a week ago.
But the First Minister has stressed the rollout is on course and the top priority groups will have been offered a first dose as promised by Friday. That's care home residents and staff, the over 80s and frontline. And remember, you can get in touch with us using social media at BBC Scot 9 on Instagram and Twitter, and hashtag the9 if you want to get us that way. Now, world leaders have condemned a military coup in Myanmar, which has seen the army taking control of the country and detaining democratically elected leaders, including the Nobel Peace Prize winner Aung San Suu Kyi. Just 3 months ago, she won a landslide election, but the army claims those polls were rigged. US President Joe Biden has called the coup an assault on the nation's transition to democracy, and he's threatened to impose sanctions.
No major violence has been reported, but there were protests in neighbouring Thailand against the takeover of power. Myanmar, formerly known as Burma, was controlled by the armed forces until a decade ago, when democratic reforms led by Aung San Suu Kyi ended their rule. Now they're in power again, and they've given themselves a year. But what happens after that is unknown, as the BBC special correspondent Fergal Keane reports.
Thank you.
Yes, of course. There's still plenty of time, a couple of hours. That's still time for some last-minute pen to paper, signing a dotted line.
I'm completely ancient, obviously, but I'm old enough to remember when transfer deadline day in Scotland was right up to the wire at midnight, £10 million signings being done at 5 to midnight, getting them across the line. It seems like yesterday, but there are those, of course, who would argue that game got some clubs into
a little bit of trouble.
Yeah. And the whole kind of game fell on its head in Scotland, didn't it, as after that. So anyway, there we are. Change days.
It certainly is. Thank you very much, guys.
Now, there's a widespread hope that live music will be allowed to return this year, but some fear that by the time it is, the infrastructure required to actually put shows on might not exist anymore.
That's because the supporting crew, who play such an important part in making those events happen, could be forced to cut their losses and quit the music industry altogether. Miles Bonner reports.
And you can watch Miles Bonner's full report on Disclosure, the Price of the Pandemic. That's available right now on the iPlayer. That's really sad to think about. You know, I mean, look, we're not surprised, no festivals, but you're just hoping that once we can, that we can get back to something like that.
Yeah, I know. Do you know what I find particularly kind of troubling about all that is these are the people who have decided they're going to do something they love. They might not think they're ever going to get rich. They've just followed their dream and thought, I really want, if I can work in this industry, I'll be happy. And they just kind of fallen between the cracks, a lot of them, in this pandemic. Nobody could have predicted it. But yeah, good luck to them all. Hopefully we'll get most of that industry back. 'Cause boy, we miss it.
We'll be there, won't we?
Won't we?
We'll
Just. Now then, some of the day's other news stories. And Prince Harry has accepted an apology and undisclosed damages from the publishers of the Mail on Sunday and Mail Online over an article. They have been talking about that stuff for forever, for as long as I can remember.
And with wolves as well, and this argument that they would keep, you know, on top of the deer population, which can become problematic. I mean, they're stunning. They're absolutely gorgeous, those animals, but I can understand if you have livestock, that would be quite
It's
concerning.
part of the whole rewilding thing as well. The people who are organising that are quite keen on that reintroduction, isn't it? Well, we shall see. We shall see. They are from Siberia, those links. They would be glad of the weather we're about to get, wouldn't they, Chris?
It's cold, isn't it? Do you know, right now it's -10 at Altmahara, -8 at Braemar in Aberdeenshire.
Wow.
pretty cold. And actually, that's the theme for this week. It is cold. I mean, it's February. We shouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, but it is a particular kind of cold at the moment. It's freezing in my house.
Yeah, it is cold. And obviously, with the cold air, anything falling out of the sky likely to be wintry at times. There will be some snow for some of us. So let's take a look at all of the details. Very good evening to you. Mostly dry for much of the country today. A few wintry or 4 degrees. That's the forecast.
Look at
The dog
that
doesn't
dog.
seem to like it.
Just as a user's guide, this is kind of pain in the neck snow rather than dig yourself out of your house snow.
Looks like it. For where most people live, yes.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Well, hopefully it doesn't last too long.
Yeah, well, from dogs in the snow to more big cat news. Zookeepers in the Cairngorm say they're encouraged that love might be in the air between 2 endangered Amur tigers. Let's have a look out loud. And I think that concludes our big cat news for tonight,
it's a full
Martin.
roundup. All
we
the
have
big
done
cat
them all.
news you need. You've had it here. That's quite interesting, though. These animals, when they're introduced for the first time, they're not always best mates. That's good news. Right, that is it from us.
I'll be back with James Cook tomorrow.
Thanks very much indeed for watching. I'll see you soon. Good night.
Good night.